The rain hammered against the cracked window of my studio apartment with the kind of relentless fury that matched the pounding in my chest. I stood in the kitchenette, if you could call the 3-foot counter with a hot plate and mini fridge a kitchen, staring at the hospital bill that had arrived yesterday. $47,892. The numbers seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, growing larger every time I blinked. Final notice. Account sent to collections. In the bassinet I'd found at a thrift store for $15, Aria slept, her tiny chest rising and falling with the precious rhythm that had nearly stopped 2 weeks ago. 3 months old, perfect rosebud lips, dark wisps of hair, olive skin that tanned even under fluorescent hospital lights. She looked exactly like him, and that resemblance was both my comfort and my curse. The formula can on the counter was empty. I'd already scraped out every last molecule of powder this morning, mixing it with slightly more water than recommended to stretch it further. The next can, the last one I could afford before my paycheck in 5 days, sat unopened. But 5 days might as well be 5 years when your daughter was hungry now. My phone sat on the counter next to the bill, the screen dark and accusatory. I'd been staring at it for 20 minutes, my thumb hovering over the blocked contact I'd sworn never to unblock. Even looking at his name made my stomach clench with a complicated knot of fear, anger, longing, and something darker I refused to name. Dante Salvatore, my ex-husband. The man who'd swept into my life like a dark prince and turned out to be something far more dangerous. The man who still didn't know he had a daughter. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. This was insane. I'd spent 9 months building a life separate from him, struggling and scraping and surviving on my own. 9 months of double shifts at the free clinic, of watered-down formula and thrift store clothes, of lying awake at night in this apartment that smelled like mildew and old cooking oil, convinced I was doing the right thing. 9 months of telling myself that poverty with freedom was better than comfort in a cage. But Aria's soft whimper from the bassinet shattered my resolve like glass. She was waking up, and when she woke up, she'd be hungry, and I had nothing to give her. My finger moved, almost of its own volition, unblocking the contact. His name appeared. Dante. No last name needed, no photo, just those 6 letters that had once meant safety and love and forever, before I'd learned they actually meant possession and control and lies. I pressed the call button before I could change my mind. It rang once, just once. Mia. His voice poured through the speaker like dark honey over broken glass, smooth and dangerous, intimate and threatening all at once. Not a question, a statement, as if he'd been sitting there for 9 months, phone in hand, waiting for this exact moment. My breath caught. I'd forgotten the effect his voice had on me, that low rumble that seemed to resonate in my bones. Or maybe I'd just convinced myself I'd forgotten, because remembering would have made the separation unbearable. Dante. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Small victories. 9 months, 3 weeks, 4 days. He said it like he was reading stock prices, casual, factual. Not that I've been counting. But he had been. Of course he had. Dante counted everything. Money, favors, debts, slights both real and imagined. He cataloged the world like an accountant cataloging assets, always calculating value, always assessing worth. I'd thought I was different. I'd been wrong. I need money. The words tasted like bile and failure. I forced them out anyway. For baby milk. The silence that followed was so absolute that for a moment I thought the call had dropped, but I could hear him breathing, slow and controlled, the kind of measured breath that meant he was processing information, recalibrating, planning his next move. "Whose baby, Mia?" When he finally spoke, each word was carefully enunciated, precisely placed. But underneath the control, I could hear something else, something that made my pulse spike with primal fear. Fury. Barely leashed, barely controlled fury. "Mine," I whispered, because suddenly my throat was too tight for anything louder. And the father? This was it. The moment I'd been dreading for 3 months. The moment I'd known would come eventually, despite all my efforts to avoid it. Because you couldn't hide a child from a man like Dante Salvatore forever. He had eyes everywhere, resources I couldn't even imagine. It was honestly shocking that he hadn't found out already. Or maybe he had, and he'd been waiting for me to come to him, waiting for me to break. That would be just like him, letting me struggle until I had no choice but to crawl back and beg. "You," I said, and the admission felt like stepping off a cliff. "She's yours, Dante." Another silence, this one different, heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite name. "I see." Two words, carefully neutral, then, "You were pregnant when we divorced." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I found out 2 weeks after. I was already 8 weeks along." "And you didn't think I had a right to know?" Now the fury was creeping into his voice, frost forming around the edges of each word. "For 9 months you've been carrying my child, raising my child, struggling with my child, and you didn't think to inform me?" I couldn't. I gripped the counter's edge, needing something solid to anchor me. "I couldn't bring her into your world, Dante, into that life, into safety?" he interrupted, his voice cutting like a blade. "Into wealth? Into a home where she wouldn't be hungry, where her mother wouldn't have to beg for formula money." The accuracy of his assessment stung because it was true. All of it was true. My daughter was hungry, I was begging, and my pride had brought us to this point. "I was protecting her," I said, but even to my own ears it sounded weak. "You were running." He said it simply, stating a fact. "You were running, and you were willing to let our daughter suffer rather than ask me for help. Your help comes with strings, Dante. It always does. And yet here you are, calling me anyway." There was something almost like satisfaction in his voice, which means you're desperate enough that the strings don't matter anymore. Aria's whimper escalated into a full cry, that particular wail that meant she was hungry and would not be comforted by anything other than food. I moved to the bassinet, picking her up and cradling her against my chest, bouncing slightly in the automatic motion every parent learns. "Is that her?" Dante's voice had changed completely, the fury draining away, replaced by something I'd never heard from him before. Wonder, uncertainty. "Is that my daughter?" "Yes," I said, my own voice breaking as Aria's cries intensified. "Her name is Aria." I heard him inhale sharply. Aria had been his mother's name. I'd told myself that the choice was coincidence, that I just liked the sound of it. But we both knew I was lying. "Aria," he repeated, and there was something raw in his voice that made my eyes burn with unwanted tears. "You named her for my mother." "It's a beautiful name," I said, the lamest possible defense. "What's your address?" Sudden, sharp, all business again. The brief glimpse of vulnerability locked away. I hesitated. Giving him my address meant he knew where I lived, meant he could show up anytime, meant I lost the anonymity that had been my only shield for 9 months. "Mia." His voice dropped lower, became almost gentle. "Almost. Give me the address, or I send men to find you. And trust me, Bella, you don't want that. You want me to come alone, to come quietly, to come as your daughter's father, rather than as something else, don't you?" The threat was clear, velvet-wrapped but unmistakable. I could cooperate, or I could be found. Those were my only options. I gave him the address. "1 hour," he said. "Pack a bag. For both of you. You're not staying in whatever shithole you've been living in. Not anymore." "Dante, I'm not moving. 1 hour, Mia, or I come with my entire security team and we do this the hard way. Your choice." The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, Aria screaming against my chest, and felt the trap snap shut around me. I'd made the call. I'd opened the door. And Dante Salvatore never let an opportunity slip through his fingers once he had it in his grasp. "I'm sorry, baby girl," I whispered into Aria's dark hair. "Mommy just made a deal with the devil, but at least you'll have formula." The hour passed in a blur of frantic activity. I changed Aria into her nicest onesie, a hand-me-down from the clinic's donation box, but clean and without stains. I packed our meager belongings into the single suitcase I owned, clothes that mostly didn't fit anymore, toiletries, the few keepsakes I'd brought from my old life, the hospital discharge papers, the birth certificate that listed father, unknown, because I'd been too proud, too scared, too stubborn to write his name. I was zipping the suitcase when I heard it, the low rumble of an expensive engine in the alley below. My apartment was on the third floor of a building that had been condemned twice, but somehow remained standing. No elevator, trash in the stairwells, the smell of urine and desperation seeping through the walls. I moved to the window, careful to stay back from the grimy glass. Below, a black Mercedes SUV idled in the alley, rain streaming off its polished surface. As I watched, the driver's door opened and a man emerged. Dante. Even 3 floors up, even through rain and dirt-streaked glass, he was unmistakable. Tall, 6'3" in his bare feet, taller in the Italian leather shoes he favored. Broad shoulders under a black overcoat that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Dark hair slightly longer than conventional, curling at his collar. And even though I couldn't see them from here, I knew his eyes were the color of espresso, nearly black, capable of warm affection or cold fury with no transition in between. He looked up, directly at my window, as if he could feel me watching. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other across the distance. Then he moved toward the building entrance with that purposeful stride that cleared rooms and made men step aside. I had maybe 2 minutes before he reached my door. I picked up Aria, now mercifully quiet after I'd given her the last of the formula, and held her close. "Here we go, sweet girl. Meet your father." The knock, when it came, was firm but not aggressive. 3 raps, precise and controlled. I opened the door. Dante Salvatore stood in my doorway, rain darkening his shoulders, and for a moment, we just looked at each other. 9 months, 3 weeks, 4 days since I'd last seen him, since I'd stood in the courthouse and signed papers that had dissolved our marriage of 6 months, since I'd walked away from the penthouse and the security and the suffocating golden cage he'd built around me. He looked the same, maybe a few more lines around his eyes, maybe a touch more gray at his temples, but essentially the same. Devastatingly handsome in that dark, dangerous way that had first attracted me, that had made me ignore every red flag and warning sign. His eyes moved from my face to the bundle in my arms, and something shifted in his expression. The controlled mask cracked, just for a second, revealing something underneath that looked almost like pain. "May I come in?" he asked, and there was a formality to it that felt absurd given everything between us. I stepped back. He entered, and suddenly, my tiny studio felt even smaller, overwhelmed by his presence. He seemed to fill the space, making the cracked walls and water-stained ceiling and general air of poverty more pronounced by contrast. His gaze swept the room in seconds. The bassinet, the hot plate, the stack of overdue bills on the counter, the empty formula can. I watched his jaw tighten with each observation, watched his hands curl into fists at his sides. "You've been living here," he said, and it wasn't a question. "For 9 months, while carrying and then raising my child, you've been living in this." He stopped himself, visibly controlling whatever he'd been about to say. "It's what I could afford," I said, raising my chin. I wouldn't apologize for my poverty, not to him. "And your nursing job at the clinic?" he continued, his voice dangerously soft. "The one that pays barely minimum wage because they're a non-profit? How did you really think I didn't know where you were, Mia?" He turned to face me fully, and his eyes were chips of black ice. "Did you honestly believe I couldn't find you? I had your location within 3 hours of you leaving. I've had men watching this building for 9 months. I know your schedule, your routine, your friends, though you seem to have precious few of those. I know you work double shifts when you should be resting. I know you skip meals to afford diapers. I know everything, Mia. Everything except the fact that you were carrying my child, because you were apparently clever enough to avoid all medical facilities my people monitor." The revelation stole my breath. He'd been watching me. For 9 months I'd thought I was free, thought I was building an independent life, and he'd been watching every moment of my struggle. "That's sick," I whispered. That's protection," he corrected sharply. You left me, fine. You divorced me, fine. But you were still mine, Mia. Still under my protection whether you wanted it or not. Did you think I'd let you disappear into the city unguarded? Let you wander around where anyone could hurt you? Anyone like you mean? He flinched, actually flinched, and I felt a small, savage satisfaction at landing the blow. I never hurt you, he said quietly. I never raised a hand to you, never threatened you, never even raised my voice except in our final argument, and that was, he stopped, shaking his head. It doesn't matter. What matters is my daughter. As if she knew she was being discussed, Arya stirred in my arms. Her eyes fluttered open, those dark, serious eyes that were undeniably her father's, and she looked directly at Dante. The change in him was instantaneous. The cold fury melted away, replaced by something I'd never seen on Dante Salvatore's face before. Uncertainty, wonder, fear. She has my eyes, he breathed, taking an involuntary step forward. Cristo, Mia, she has my eyes. Yes. My arms tightened protectively around her even as I acknowledged the truth. She looks exactly like you. It's uncanny sometimes. May I? He stopped, swallowed. May I hold her? The request was so unlike him, so tentative and vulnerable, that it disarmed me completely. This was not the Dante I knew. The Dante I knew took what he wanted, commanded rather than asked, assumed his right to everything. Have you ever held a baby before? I asked, stalling. No, honest, direct, but I want to hold mine. I moved closer, carefully transferring Arya into his arms. His hands were large, scarred across the knuckles from violence I'd once been naive enough to ignore, but they held her with surprising gentleness. He cradled her against his chest, one hand supporting her head with instinctive care. Arya studied him solemnly for a long moment. Then, inexplicably, impossibly, she smiled. Not gas, not a random facial movement, a real smile, the kind she'd only recently started giving me. Dio, Dante whispered, and his voice cracked. She smiled at me. Did you see that? She smiled. Something in my chest twisted painfully. This was what I denied him, these moments, these small, precious, irreplaceable moments. Not because he didn't deserve them, though I could argue he didn't, but because I'd been too afraid, too proud, too determined to protect my daughter from his world. And now, watching him hold her with such reverence, such desperate tenderness, I felt the first whisper of doubt about my choices. Dante, I said carefully, the formula, that's why I called. I need, already taken care of. He didn't look up from Arya. I had Marco stop at a pharmacy on the way here. There are 6 cans in the car, along with diapers, clothes, and everything else an infant needs that you clearly can't afford. The casual dismissal of my poverty stung, but I swallowed it. Thank you. If you'll just leave them, we'll be... No. Now he did look up, and the cold determination was back in his eyes. You're not staying here, Mia. Neither of you are staying in this place another night. You can't just... I can. He said it with absolute conviction. I will. You're coming with me. Both of you. We can do this easily, or we can do it with difficulty, but the outcome is the same. This is kidnapping. This is protection. He moved closer, Arya still cradled carefully in his arms. And it's non-negotiable. You want to hate me for it? Fine. You want to fight me every step of the way? I can live with that. But what I cannot live with, what I will not tolerate, is my daughter living in poverty and hunger, while I have more resources than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Your daughter, I repeated bitterly. 2 hours ago, you didn't even know she existed. And whose fault is that? The fury was back, crackling beneath his words. I had a right to know, Mia, a right to provide for her, to protect her. You stole that from me. I protected her from you. From me? His laugh was harsh. From me, who would have given her everything. Or from my world, which you never bothered to try to understand. I understood enough, I shot back. I understood what you are, Dante, what you do, the things you collect, and I don't mean debts, I mean people. My father, I stopped, but it was too late. His eyes sharpened. Your father, he repeated slowly, Have you spoken to him recently? The change of subject threw me. What? Why would you? Answer the question, Mia. When did you last speak to your father? My mouth went dry. 2 weeks ago. He called to check on me. Why? Dante's expression had gone completely blank, which I'd learned was more dangerous than his anger. And you haven't heard from him since? He's been busy. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. My father called religiously every few days, checking on his little girl, even though I was 26 and had explicitly told him I didn't need checking on. 2 weeks of silence was unusual, more than unusual. Dante, what's going on? He looked down at Arya, then back at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. Saw him deciding what to tell me, how much truth I could handle. Your father is missing, he said finally. Has been for 2 weeks. The same men he owed money to before I paid his debts. He went back to them, borrowed again, bigger this time. And when he couldn't pay, no, the word came out strangled. No, you're lying. My father wouldn't. Your father is a gambling addict, Mia. You know this. I paid off $200,000 in debts when we married. Did you really think that cured him? I wanted to deny it, wanted to scream that he was wrong, that my father had learned his lesson, that the shame of having his daughter married off to settle his debts had changed him. But I couldn't, because deep down, I'd always known that the sickness that drove my father to risk everything on the turn of a card or the roll of dice wasn't something that could be cured with a single intervention. Who has him? I whispered. The Moretti family. Dante's voice was grim. My competition, my enemies, and they didn't take him just for his debts, Mia. They took him because of his connection to me. The room tilted. What? Your father witnessed something 6 years ago, a murder, committed by Vincent Moretti himself. The only reason your father is alive is because I married you and brought him under my protection. He was supposed to stay quiet, stay safe, stay close. Instead, he ran up new debts with the Morettis, gave them leverage, and now... A sharp knock at the door cut him off. We both froze. Are you expecting someone? Dante's voice had gone deadly soft. I shook my head mutely. Another knock, harder this time. Then a voice, rough and unfamiliar. Mia Delgado? We know you're in there. Open up, or we open it ourselves. Dante moved with frightening speed, pressing Arya into my arms and positioning himself between us and the door. His hand went to the small of his back, emerging with a compact black pistol I hadn't known he was carrying. How many exits? He asked quietly. All business now. Just the door and the fire escape, I whispered, terror clawing at my throat. But the fire escape is rusted. I don't think it would hold. The door exploded inward with a crash of splintered wood. 2 men filled the doorway, both armed, both with the cold eyes of professional criminals. My heart stopped completely. Dante Salvatore, the first one said, grinning without humor. Mr. Moretti sends his regards, and he'd like you to know that we've been watching this place for 3 days, waiting to see who'd show up. His eyes moved to me, to Arya. Didn't expect to find something this interesting, though. Is that your kid, Dante? Because if it is, Mr. Moretti's going to be real interested in meeting her. Over my dead body, Dante said, his voice arctic. The man's grin widened. That can be arranged. What happened next happened so fast I barely processed it. Dante moved, a blur of motion, his gun coming up and firing twice in rapid succession. The first man dropped, a red bloom spreading across his chest. The second got his weapon halfway up before Dante's third shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him back against the doorframe. Bedroom, now, Dante snapped at me, already moving toward the fallen men. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. I ran, scooped up the suitcase with one hand while clutching Arya with the other, bolted for the tiny bedroom that was really just a section of the studio partitioned off with a thin wall. I slammed the door, locked it, and pressed my back against it while Arya started screaming. Through the thin walls, I heard sounds I'd tried to forget, the thud of bodies hitting the floor. Dante's voice, cold and clipped, speaking rapid Italian into his phone, the wail of approaching sirens. This was the world I'd been trying to escape. This was what I'd been protecting Arya from. Violence and death and danger that followed Dante Salvatore like a shadow. But that world had found us anyway, had been waiting for us in the rotting apartment I'd thought was safety. and the only thing standing between my daughter and those men with cold eyes and weapons was the same man I'd run from 9 months ago. Mia, Dante's voice through the door, steady despite what had just happened. It's safe. You can come out. I opened the door on shaking legs. The living room was empty except for Dante, who was wiping his hands on a cloth. The men were gone. The blood was gone, as if the last 5 minutes had been a nightmare. Where? My people arrived. They're cleaning up. He moved toward me, and I saw blood on his collar, a bruise forming on his jaw. We need to leave. Now. Moretti knows about you, about Aria. This place isn't safe anymore. It was never safe, but now? He shook his head. We go to the estate, my estate, where I can protect you properly. Dante, no arguments, Mia, not about this. He took my suitcase, gestured toward the door. We can fight about everything else later, but right now we're running. I looked at my apartment, my independence, my freedom. All of it revealed itself as the illusion it had always been. Okay, I whispered. Okay. He put his hand on the small of my back, guiding me toward the door, toward the SUV waiting below, toward the cage I'd sworn I'd never return to. But this time, at least I knew what I was walking into. This time, I had my eyes wide open. Before we continue to the second part of this story, I want you to take a stretch and just say, thank you. You've made it so far this year in 2025. I am happy to have you as a viewer, and please do let me know where you are watching from in the comments. All good? Great. The drive to Dante's estate took 40 minutes through rain-slicked streets and increasingly affluent neighborhoods. I sat in the back seat, Aria strapped into a car seat that had appeared from somewhere, probably the trunk, probably purchased the moment Dante knew she existed. Marco drove the same silent mountain of a man who'd been Dante's driver for as long as I'd known him. Dante sat beside me, his hand resting possessively on the car seat's handle, his eyes never leaving his daughter's face. No one spoke. The only sounds were the rain, the whisper of expensive tires on wet pavement, and Aria's occasional coos as she studied the interior of the car with wide eyes. We passed through gates I recognized, wrought iron, topped with spikes that looked decorative, but I knew served a more sinister purpose. The circular driveway, the fountain that I'd once thought beautiful and later realized was positioned to provide cover during an attack. The mansion itself, all stone and glass, an old-world Mediterranean architecture that belonged in Tuscany, not the outskirts of the city. Home. This had been home for 6 brief months, until I'd learned what it really was. A fortress, a stronghold, the seat of Dante Salvatore's criminal empire. Nothing's changed, I said quietly as Marco pulled up to the entrance. Everything's changed, Dante corrected, opening his door. You'll see. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman stood there, late 60s, gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun, wearing a black dress that managed to look both professional and grandmotherly. Rosa, Dante's consigliere, his advisor, the woman who'd been with his family since before he was born. Dante, she said, her voice carrying the faint Italian accent she'd never quite lost. Then her eyes moved to me, to the bundle in my arms, and something softened in her expression. Mia, cara, you've come home. I haven't, I started, but Rosa was already moving forward, her hands reaching not for me but for Aria. May I? She asked, and something about the gentleness in her voice made me nod. Rosa took Aria with the practiced ease of someone who'd held many babies in her long life. She studied her for a long moment, then looked at Dante with tears in her eyes. She has your mother's face, she said softly, and you named her Aria. Oh, Dante, your mother would be so proud. I watched something crack in Dante's carefully controlled expression. He reached out, touching Aria's cheek with one finger, and for just a moment he looked vulnerable, lost, human. Come inside, Rosa said briskly, the moment passing. You're soaked through, both of you. Mia, you'll need dry clothes. The baby will need feeding. And Dante? She gave him a look that somehow managed to be both affectionate and stern. You need to clean yourself up. You have blood on your collar. There was an incident, Dante said carefully. I'm sure there was. Rosa handed Aria back to me with gentle care. which we will discuss later, after Mia and the Bambina are settled. She led us through the house. Nothing had changed. The marble floors, the soaring ceilings, the priceless art on the walls that I'd once admired before learning it had been acquired through less than legal means. We climbed the grand staircase to the second floor, and I realized with a jolt where she was taking us. The master suite, Dante's rooms, our rooms once upon a time. Rosa, I can't. The guest rooms are all undergoing renovation, Rosa said smoothly. A lie, but delivered with such conviction I almost believed it. This is the only suitable space. Besides, the nursery adjoins the master bedroom. It's already prepared. I stopped walking. What do you mean, already prepared? Rosa exchanged a glance with Dante. Perhaps you should see for yourself. She opened a door I remembered, white, ornate, leading to what had once been a sitting room. But the sitting room was gone. In its place was a nursery that belonged in a magazine spread. Soft yellow walls, a crib of white wood with delicate carvings, a rocking chair by the window, shelves stocked with books, toys, supplies, a changing table, everything a baby could possibly need. When? I turned to Dante, who'd followed us in. When did you do this? 7 months ago, he said quietly. When my people informed me you were pregnant. The room tilted. You knew? For 7 months you've known, and you never what? Forced my way back into your life? Demanded my rights as a father? Dragged you back here against your will? His eyes held mine. You left me, Mia. You made it very clear that you wanted nothing to do with me or my world. So I watched from a distance, made sure you were safe, made sure you had what you needed, and prepared for the day you'd be ready to come home. I had Marco set up accounts at every store within 5 miles of your apartment, he continued, his voice matter of fact. Formula, diapers, food, all charged to shell companies I control. You could have had anything you needed. You just had to ask. I didn't know, I whispered. You didn't want to know. Not an accusation, just a statement of fact. You wanted to believe you were independent, that you were making it on your own. But Mia, you were never alone. I was always there, always watching, always protecting, even when you hated me for it. Rosa cleared her throat delicately. I'll have food brought up, and formula. Dante, give them space. You can hover over your daughter later. I'm not hovering, Dante protested, but Rosa was already shooing him toward the door with the kind of comfortable authority only someone who'd changed his diapers could manage. When we were alone, Rosa turned to me with kind eyes. Sit, Cara. Let me take care of the baby while you catch your breath. I sank into the rocking chair, suddenly exhausted to my bones. Rosa moved around the nursery with efficient grace, warming a bottle, changing Arya's diaper, handling her with the ease of long practice. I watched, numb, as my carefully constructed reality crumbled around me. He'd known. For 7 months, Dante had known I was pregnant, and he'd done this. Not forcing, not demanding, just preparing, waiting, watching over us like some dark guardian angel I'd been too proud to acknowledge. He loves you, you know, Rosa said as she fed Arya. He always has, even when you left, even when you divorced him, even when you kept his child from him. He's never stopped loving you. Love isn't enough, I said bitterly. Love doesn't change what he is, what he does. No, Rosa agreed. It doesn't. Dante is who he is, what he is. But Cara, he is also a man capable of great loyalty, great protection, great devotion. You just have to decide if the rest, the darkness, the danger, the violence, is a price you're willing to pay for that devotion. What if I'm not? What if I decide I can't live with it? Rosa looked at me with eyes that had seen too much, lived too long in this world. Then you find a way to make peace with it, because whether you stay or go, you're tied to Dante now. Through Arya, through blood, through the simple fact that he will never let you truly leave, not now that he knows about his daughter. That's not fair. No, she agreed, but it is reality, and Cara, I've learned that reality is often unfair. We can rage against it, or we can learn to navigate it. Which do you think will be better for your daughter? I had no answer for that. I must have dozed off in the chair, because when I woke, the rain had stopped, and weak sunlight filtered through the windows. Aria was gone. A moment of panic until I saw the note on the changing table in Rosa's handwriting. "Baby is with me in the kitchen. Come down when you're ready." I stood, my body aching from the tension of the day, and moved to the master bedroom. Our bedroom, once upon a time. The massive four-poster bed still dominated the space, made up with silk sheets I'd once found decadent and later found suffocating. My feet carried me to the walk-in closet, almost of their own volition. My clothes were still there. Every single item I'd left behind when I fled. Dresses, shoes, coats, thousands of dollars worth of clothing that represented everything I'd walked away from. But there were also new things. Maternity clothes in my size, nursing-friendly shirts and comfortable pants. Practical items mixed with the luxury. He'd been preparing for my return, down to the smallest detail. A shower helped clear my head. The water pressure was better than anything in my apartment. The bathroom was warm. There were fresh towels, expensive soaps, all the small comforts I'd forgotten existed. I dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, both new, both fitting perfectly, and made my way downstairs. Voices led me to the kitchen, a massive space of granite and stainless steel that had always felt more like a restaurant kitchen than something for a home. Rosa stood at the counter, Aria in one arm, while she directed two other women I didn't recognize in meal preparation. Dante sat at the breakfast bar, a tablet in front of him, but his eyes were fixed on his daughter. "Mama's up," Rosa announced when she saw me. "Just in time. This one was starting to fuss for you." Dante stood immediately, moving to take Aria from Rosa. He carried her to me with that same careful reverence I'd seen before, and I realized with a start that this might be the softest I'd ever seen him, the gentlest, the most careful. "She needs you," he said simply, placing her in my arms. Aria nuzzled against me, rooting for milk, and I felt my face heat. "I need to. I should." "There's a sitting room just there," Rosa pointed. "Private. Go feed your baby, Cara. We'll have food ready when you're done." The sitting room was smaller, cozier, with a comfortable chair and soft lighting. I settled in to nurse, and within moments Aria latched on with the fierce determination she brought to everything. I stroked her dark hair and tried to process the day. This morning, I'd been alone, desperate, out of options. Now I was back in Dante's home, surrounded by his people, with my daughter's father determined to keep us here. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that I was starting to think Rosa was right. Reality was what it was. I could fight it, or I could figure out how to navigate it for Aria's sake. When I emerged, the kitchen had been cleared of the other staff. Only Rosa and Dante remained, seated at a small table near the windows. 2 plates of food waited, pasta with vegetables, simple but elegant. A third plate sat at an empty chair clearly meant for me. "Sit," Rosa commanded gently. "You need to eat. You're still nursing, yes? Then you need proper nutrition." I sat, more because I was starving than because I wanted to cooperate. The first bite nearly made me moan. Real food, expertly prepared, so different from the ramen and canned soup I'd been surviving on. "Mia," Dante said once I'd eaten a few bites, "we need to talk. About your father, about the Morettis, about what happens now." I set down my fork, appetite suddenly gone. "Tell me." He exchanged a glance with Rosa, who nodded slightly. "Your father accumulated new debts, gambling debts, $200,000 with the Moretti family. When he couldn't pay, they took him. But Mia, they didn't just take him for the money. Vincent Moretti has been looking for leverage against me for years. Your father witnessed a murder Moretti committed 6 years ago. The only reason he's alive is because marrying you brought him under my protection. It made him untouchable." "Until I left you," I said, the pieces clicking together. "When I divorced you, he lost that protection." "Yes, and the Morettis moved immediately. They've had him for 2 weeks, and they've been using him to gather information about my operations. Your father doesn't know much, but what he does know could be dangerous." Dante leaned forward, his eyes intense. "But today, when those men came to your apartment, everything changed." "How?" "They saw Aria. They know I have a daughter, and they know that you and I are—" He paused, choosing words carefully. Connected. Even if we're divorced on paper, they'll assume I care about you, about her, which makes you leverage. The food in my stomach turned to lead. They'll come after us. They'll try, Dante corrected, his voice hard. They won't succeed. But Mia, you need to understand what this means. You and Arya are targets now. The only way to keep you safe is to keep you close. Here, where my security is absolute. For how long? Until I've neutralized the threat. He said it casually, as if discussing a business meeting rather than what I suspected meant violence and death. You mean until you've killed them? He didn't deny it. Vincent Moretti has been a problem for a long time. This just accelerates the timeline. And my father? I'm working on that. His jaw tightened. I have people searching. But Mia, you need to be prepared for the possibility that... Don't, I interrupted. Don't say it. He's still alive. He has to be. Rosa reached across the table, taking my hand in her weathered one. We're doing everything we can, Cara. But Dante is right. You and the Bambina must stay here now. It's not a choice anymore. It's survival. Some choice, I said bitterly. Stay with my ex-husband who terrifies me, or risk my daughter's life. I don't want to terrify you, Dante said quietly. I never wanted that. I just wanted to protect you. By controlling me, by making all my decisions, by turning me into a prisoner in a gilded cage. Is that what you thought? Something flashed in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or anger. Mia, every rule I had, every restriction, was about keeping you safe. You weren't a prisoner. You were a queen, my queen, and I would have given you anything, done anything, if you just trusted me enough to let me. Trust? I laughed, a harsh sound. You married me to settle my father's debts. I was a transaction, a line item in your ledger. How am I supposed to trust that? The silence that followed was absolute. Dante stared at me, something like shock on his face. Rosa looked between us, understanding dawning. Is that what you think? Dante asked finally. That I married you as some kind of payment plan? Didn't you? My father owed you money. You cleared his debts. We got married. The timeline seems pretty clear. Madonna. He stood, pacing to the window, his hand running through his hair in agitation. Mia, I married you because I fell in love with you the moment you walked into my office to beg me not to hurt your father. You were so fierce, so brave, willing to offer anything to protect him. You offered me yourself, remember? Said you'd do anything if I'd forgive his debts. I did remember. That awful day when I'd learned the extent of my father's gambling problem, when I'd tracked down the name of his creditor and thrown myself on his mercy. I'd expected a monster. Instead, I'd found Dante, polished, sophisticated, dangerous but not cruel. And I'd offered him the only thing I had, myself. I told you no, Dante continued. I told you I didn't collect payments in flesh. I cleared your father's debts because it was a relatively small amount and because I couldn't stand the look of desperation in your eyes. And then I asked you to have dinner with me. Remember? No obligations, no expectations, just dinner. I remember, I whispered. One dinner became two, became weeks of dating, became me falling so completely in love with you that when you agreed to marry me, I thought I'd won the lottery. He turned to face me. Your father's debt was paid long before I proposed, Mia. Our marriage had nothing to do with his debts, and everything to do with the fact that I couldn't imagine my life without you in it. Then why did you never tell me what you really did? I demanded. Why did you let me believe you were just a financial consultant? Because I was terrified you'd leave me if you knew the truth, he admitted. And I was right, wasn't I? The moment you discovered what I really was, you ran. You found guns in our bedroom. Yes, because I live in a dangerous world and I need to be able to protect myself. Protect you. He moved back to the table, leaning on it with both hands. Mia, I am not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. But everything I've done, every choice I've made since I met you, has been with your safety in mind. You can't just... I'm not asking you to understand. he interrupted. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to stay. Here, where I can keep you and Arya safe. That's all. Just stay. I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the desperation he was trying to hide, saw the fear that I'd run again, and this time take his daughter with me, saw the man beneath the monster, the human beneath the killer. I need conditions, I said finally. If I'm going to stay, even temporarily, I need rules, boundaries. He straightened. Name them. No guns in the nursery or the master bedroom. I don't want Arya anywhere near weapons. Done. I want access to my own money, not an allowance, my own account that you can't touch. He nodded. I'll set it up tomorrow. How much do you want in it? The question threw me. I don't know. Enough to leave if I need to. $1 million, he said immediately. In your name only. Enough to disappear if that's what you decide. I gaped at him. That's too much. It's not nearly enough. His eyes held mine. But it's a start. What else? Freedom of movement. I can come and go. I'm not a prisoner. With a security detail, he countered. 2 guards. They stay at a distance, but they stay with you. Non-negotiable, Mia. Not after today. I wanted to argue, but after seeing those men in my apartment, after understanding that the Morettis knew about Arya, I couldn't. Fine. 2 guards. Discreet ones. Anything else? Rosa. I looked at the older woman, who'd been watching our exchange with shrewd eyes. I want Rosa to be, I don't know, a mediator, someone neutral who can help us navigate this. Because Dante, I don't trust you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I trust her. Rosa nodded slowly. I can do this. I will be fair to both of you. And Kara, I will always put Arya's well-being first. Always. Agreed, Dante said immediately. Rosa has my complete confidence. If she says I'm crossing a line, I'll listen. Will you? I challenged. Really listen? Or will you just do what you want anyway? I will listen, he said, and there was something in his voice that made me believe him. Mia, I've had 9 months to think about what went wrong between us. 9 months to realize that my need to control everything pushed you away. I'm trying. I'm trying to be different, to be better. Not for me, for Arya. For the chance that maybe, someday, you might be able to forgive me enough to. He stopped. To give us another chance. The admission hung in the air between us. Raw, vulnerable, so unlike the Dante I thought I knew. I can't promise that, I said honestly. I can't promise forgiveness or second chances or anything beyond staying long enough to keep Arya safe. I know, he straightened, but I'll take what I can get. Starting with you here, under my roof, where I can see my daughter grow up. Rosa stood, clearing the plates. It's settled then. Mia and Arya will stay in the master suite. You, Dante, will take one of the guest rooms. What? No, Dante started. One of the guest rooms, Rosa repeated firmly, until you and Mia have worked out your arrangement properly. The Bambina stays with her mother. You get visitation, like civilized people. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The absurdity of it all. The idea of needing visitation to see his own daughter in his own house. But Rosa's face was serious, and I saw the wisdom in it. Space, boundaries, a way to share parenting without the complications of sharing everything else. Fine, Dante agreed, though he looked pained. But I want morning and evening time with her, every day, and I'm teaching her Italian. She's 3 months old, I pointed out. It's never too early to start. His tone was final, then softer. My mother spoke to me in Italian from the day I was born. I want that for Arya. The reference to his mother, the woman he'd lost so young, the woman he rarely mentioned, softened something in me. Okay, you can teach her Italian. And I want to be involved, he continued, warming to the theme. Doctor appointments, feeding schedules, everything. I've missed 3 months. I don't intend to miss any more. You'll be changing diapers? I asked, skeptical. All of them, if you'll let me. He said it with complete seriousness. I want to know my daughter, Mia, every aspect of her, even the unpleasant parts. Rosa made a sound that might have been a laugh. This I will believe when I see it. The great Dante Salvatore, feared by men across 5 boroughs, defeated by baby waste. Watch me, Dante said, a hint of humor in his dark eyes. Then to me, where is she? Can I hold her again? Just for a while? I'd left her sleeping in her car seat in the sitting room. She's probably still asleep. I don't care. I just want to be near her. We moved to the sitting room, where Aria was indeed still sleeping, her tiny fists curled near her face. Dante knelt beside the car seat, just watching her breathe. The fierce Mafia enforcer reduced to a man in awe of his own child. She's perfect, he whispered. How did we make something so perfect? I knelt beside him, and for a moment we were just 2 parents marveling at the miracle they'd created. I don't know, but we did. He looked at me, his dark eyes intense. I meant what I said, Mia, about trying to be better, about listening. I know I can't undo the past, can't take back the things that made you run. But I can try to build something new, something where you feel safe, free, valued for more than just being mine. I was never just yours, I said quietly. That was the problem. I had no identity separate from you. I was Dante Salvatore's wife, and that was all anyone saw, including you. Then help me see you differently, he said. Teach me how to be with you without consuming you. Because Mia, I love you. I've never stopped. But I'm learning that love without freedom is just another kind of prison. And I don't want to be your jailer. I want to be your partner. That's going to take time, I warned. A lot of time. And therapy. Actual therapy, Dante. Not just Rosa mediating. Real, professional help. I'll do it, he agreed without hesitation. Whatever it takes. And transparency, I continued. No more secrets about your business. I don't need to know details, but I need to know when there's danger, when to be careful. I can't protect Aria if I don't know what I'm protecting her from. He hesitated at that, and I saw the war in his eyes. But finally, okay, within reason. I can't tell you everything. Some knowledge is dangerous in itself, but I'll tell you when there's active threat, when you need to be extra cautious. Deal? Deal. Aria chose that moment to wake, her eyes opening slowly. She looked at me, then at Dante, and made a small noise, not quite a cry, more of an announcement that she was awake and deserved attention. May I? Dante asked, already reaching for her. She might need a diaper change, I warned. Then I'll change it. Show me how. And so we found ourselves in the nursery, Dante receiving his first lesson in diaper changing from a woman who'd divorced him 9 months ago. He was surprisingly competent, his large hands moving with careful precision. When Aria decided to make the process more challenging with an ill-timed additional contribution, he barely flinched. See, he said, cleaning her up with impressive efficiency. I can do this. 1 diaper doesn't make you Father of the Year, I said, but there was no heat in it. No, but it's a start. He finished, fastening the new diaper with care, and lifted Aria into his arms. And I plan to be here for all of it. Every diaper, every feeding, every milestone, every moment I can steal. Watching him with her, seeing the tenderness, the wonder, the fierce protective love, I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't the cold, controlling man I'd fled from. Or maybe it was, but there was more to him than I'd allowed myself to see. Layers beneath the monster. Humanity beneath the violence. She needs a bottle, I said, checking the time. And then probably a nap. I'll do it. Tell me how much formula, how warm the water should be, everything. So I taught him. And he learned with the same focused intensity he probably brought to all his endeavors, business and otherwise. He fed Aria with careful attention, supporting her head, watching for signs that she was full, burping her with gentle competence. You're a natural, Rosa said from the doorway. I hadn't heard her approach. Your mother would be proud. Something painful crossed Dante's face. I wish she could have met her granddaughter. She's here in spirit, Rosa said gently, in her name, in those eyes. in the love you're showing this baby. That's all any Nona could ask for. After Arya was asleep in the crib, Rosa gave us a meaningful look. You two need to talk. Really talk. I'll watch the baby. Go. Dante led me to his study, the room that had once been his sanctuary, the place he'd worked late into the night on business I'd pretended not to know about. It looked the same. Dark wood, leather furniture, shelves of books. But there were differences. A photo on the desk that hadn't been there before. Me, from our wedding day, laughing at something off camera. I'd thought he'd destroyed all our photos. I couldn't get rid of them, he said, following my gaze. I tried. I lasted about 2 days before I had them all pulled back out of storage. Dante, let me say this, please. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed me one even though I hadn't asked. I've been preparing this speech for 9 months. I took the glass, sat in the leather chair opposite his desk. Okay, I'm listening. He didn't sit. He paced, gathering his thoughts. I grew up in this world, Mia. My father was a collector before me, his father before him. It's all I've ever known. And in this world, you protect what's yours. You control your territory. You never show weakness. These were the lessons I learned from childhood. He paused, taking a drink. When I met you, I didn't know how to be anything other than what I was. I tried to fit you into my world the only way I knew how, by making you mine, by putting you in the safest place I could, which was my home, with my guards, under my direct protection. I thought I was loving you. I didn't realize I was suffocating you. You were, I said quietly. Every decision made for me, every friend vetted, every outing planned and supervised. I felt like a doll in your house, Dante. Beautiful and pampered, but ultimately powerless. He flinched but didn't argue. I know. I understand that now. And Mia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Sorry I was so focused on keeping you safe that I didn't see I was making you miserable. Why did you sign the divorce papers? The question had haunted me. You could have fought it. You have expensive lawyers, connections. You could have made it impossible, but you just signed. Because you asked me to. He finally sat, setting down his glass. Because for the first time, I saw how trapped you felt. Saw the fear in your eyes, not of me, but of the life I'd built around you. And I realized that if I truly loved you, I had to let you go, even if it destroyed me. And then you watched me. For 9 months. I couldn't not watch you, Mia. I had to know you were safe, that you were eating, sleeping, surviving. And when I found out you were pregnant, his voice cracked. I wanted to storm back into your life immediately, demand my rights as a father, bring you back here where I could take care of you properly. But Rosa talked me out of it. I glanced at him in surprise. Rosa knew? Rosa knows everything. She said that forcing you back would only drive you further away, that I needed to let you come to me in your own time. So I waited. I prepared. And I prayed you'd call before you reached the breaking point. I reached it, I admitted, when I couldn't afford formula, when the hospital bills started piling up, when I realized my pride was hurting Arya. That's when I called. Thank God you did. He leaned forward. Mia, I know you don't believe me. I know you think this is all just another way to control you. But I swear on my mother's grave, on Arya's life, that I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be the kind of man who can give you freedom and protection, who can love you without smothering you. That's a big promise. I know, and I'll probably fail sometimes. My instincts are what they are. But I'm asking you to give me the chance to try, to build something new with me. Not our old marriage, but something better. Something where you have a voice, choices, power. I studied him, this complicated, dangerous, desperate man. Why? Why does it matter so much? You could find someone else, someone who'd fit into your world more easily. Because I don't want someone else. His voice was fierce. I want you, Mia. I've only ever wanted you. From that first moment when you walked into my office, terrified but brave, willing to sacrifice yourself for your father, I knew you were mine. Not in the possessive sense, in the sense of recognition. Like I'd been waiting my whole life for you to appear. That's not how love works, I protested. You can't just decide someone is yours. Can't you? He stood, moving around the desk to where I sat. He didn't touch me, but he was close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Tell me you didn't feel it too. That moment of recognition. That sense that your life was splitting into before and after. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't, because he was right. That first meeting had changed everything, had split my world into before Dante and after. I'd fallen fast and hard, blinded by his attention, his protection, his fierce devotion. I felt it, I admitted. But Dante, feeling something doesn't mean acting on it is wise, doesn't mean we're good for each other. Maybe not, but we have a daughter now, and whether we're together or apart, we need to find a way to be good for her. He finally reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with infinite gentleness. So let's start there. Let's figure out how to co-parent in a way that doesn't destroy either of us, and maybe, along the way, we figure out if there's anything left worth saving between us. And if there's not, I forced myself to ask, if we try this and it doesn't work, then we split custody as fairly as we can. I help you set up somewhere safe, a house, security, whatever you need, and we remain friendly for Arya's sake. His jaw tightened. I won't lie and say it won't kill me, but I'll do it if that's what you truly want. It was the most reasonable I'd ever heard him, the most human, as if losing me had taught him that some things couldn't be controlled or demanded into existence. Okay, I said softly. We try, for Arya, and we see what happens. The relief that washed over his face was almost painful to witness. Thank you. You won't regret this, Mia. I swear you won't. I hoped he was right, because I was placing my trust and my daughter's safety in the hands of a man who'd already broken my heart once. But this time, I was going in with my eyes open. This time, I knew exactly what I was dealing with. And this time, if he crossed my boundaries, I had Rosa to hold him accountable. An account with $1 million, and the determination to put Arya's well-being above everything else, including my own fear, pride, and confused feelings for the complicated man before me. We start tomorrow, I said, fresh, with clear rules and expectations. Tonight, I just want to sleep. Of course, he stepped back, giving me space. Your room, our room, is exactly as you left it. Your things are still in the closet. If you need anything, anything at all, I'm just down the hall. Dante. Yes? Thank you for today, for saving us, for trying. His smile was small but genuine. Always, Mia. For you and Arya, always. 6 weeks later, Arya lay on a blanket in the garden, cooing at the autumn leaves drifting down from the trees. I sat beside her, watching Dante on the phone a few feet away. He was arguing with someone in rapid Italian, his free hand gesturing emphatically. But his eyes kept drifting back to us, checking that we were safe, present, real. It had been 6 weeks since that desperate phone call. 6 weeks of therapy sessions with a counselor Rosa had found, someone experienced in high-stress relationships and complex family dynamics. 6 weeks of learning to communicate, to set boundaries, to build something new from the ashes of what we'd had before. It wasn't perfect. Dante still struggled with his controlling instincts. I still flinched when men in suits appeared unexpectedly. But we were trying, really trying. My father had been found alive, barely. He was recovering in a hospital, under guard, and facing charges for his gambling debts. But he was alive. Dante had negotiated his rescue as part of a larger peace agreement with the Morettis, one that involved territorial concessions and financial arrangements I didn't pretend to understand. The important thing was, we were safe. The immediate threat was gone, which meant I had to decide what happened next. I could stay, continue building this fragile new relationship with Dante, or I could take my daughter and the resources he'd promised me and start fresh somewhere else. Dante ended his call and came to sit beside me, immediately reaching for Arya. She was 4 months old now, and she lit up whenever she saw her father. The bond between them was undeniable, pure, simple, unconditional love. Everything okay? I asked. Just business. Nothing you need to worry about. He caught himself, grimaced. I mean, it's all handled. No active threats. We're secure. I smiled at his attempt to correct himself. Thank you for the clarification. He looked at me, Arya cradled in his arms and asked the question I knew had been building. Have you decided about staying? I've been thinking about it constantly, weighing options, considering futures, trying to predict what would be best for Arya. I'm staying, I said finally. For now, for her, and maybe a little bit for us too. The hope that flared in his eyes was almost painful to see. You mean it? I mean, I'm willing to keep trying, to see if we can build something real, something where I'm not your possession, but your partner. I met his gaze steadily. Can you do that, Dante? Can you really share power with me, instead of just holding all of it yourself? I don't know, he admitted, but I want to try. God, Mia, I want to try. Then we try, together. He leaned over Arya to kiss me, soft, careful, asking rather than taking. When I kissed him back, I felt possibility. Not certainty, not the fairy tale ending I'd once dreamed of, but something real, something we were building together, one day at a time. Arya gurgled happily between us, oblivious to the complexity of our situation. She just knew she had two parents who loved her fiercely, who would protect her with everything they had, and maybe, eventually, who would love each other the way they should have from the beginning, as equals, as partners, as two broken people building something whole. Welcome home, Bella, Dante whispered against my lips, and for the first time, I thought he might be right.